Hello everybody. Marino Ravenberg here again, of course, and you can see that I have Mashika Mianowski with me again. You can tell based on the header of this video, this is going to be a story of destruction. This is like a success story, but instead of a success story about how someone got what they wanted, this is how the story of how someone got their ass handed to them. And a lot of people that follow me will definitely appreciate the video, especially the detail. Now, I'm going to give a brief summary and then I'll let Mashi do the rest of the talking, or the majority of the talking. I'll only fill in when it's absolutely necessary. Apologies beforehand if I sound a bit off, metaphorically off, because I just woke up. It's not an issue, blah, 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 whatever. I already did a story on Eduardo Espinal. I mean, the last video I did, that was the last video, but this is simply a different take, and it's not so much about him. He is simply an example. Now, long story short, as you guys already know, Eduardo, just like I explained in the last video, it's just some fucking dipshit $1 cent or euro cent wannabe version of me was. And then this whole debacle continued. I was onto it. I simply let him on, essentially. And I just pretended to be friends with him for close to a year. And then I said, okay, I'm going to pull the plug now because this guy's a leeching parasite, to say the least. Blah, 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 blah. All the stuff I mentioned in that video, the last video I did on the named or called the last and final video on Eduardo Espinal. Now, this video simply, we're going to pick up where essentially the so-called battle began, quote unquote battle. Summarized, he tried to curse me several times. He tried attacking me, which was quite comical, honestly, for me as well as Mashi when he saw that. Hilarious. The nail in the coffin is essentially where I said to myself, okay, this guy, he has annoyed me for 0.001%. I checked to see if I have the karmic clearance to fucking hand his ass to him. And I promptly did so through my beloved enforcer. My VIP bodyguard, the enforcer, Egregore style bodyguard, the enforcer. He essentially likes me recording this video based on his nature overall. Not that that you can categorize his nature, but he is a show off, but in a good way, like bravado. But meant in a good way, obviously, since he is essentially modeled after me, but in a destructive, forceful way, just forceful. That's why he's called the enforcer. So yeah, the enforcer, my beloved enforcer, took care of Eduardo, and Eduardo got his ass handed to him, mentally destroyed, etc., etc., etc. I'm not gonna spoil or ruin the surprise. We'll come to that in the end. Mashik is briefly going to give his 2 cents, metaphorically speaking. By 2 cents, I of course mean that he's going to tell his side of the story so that you guys don't just hear it from me. You don't have to take my word for it. Obviously, my word is and will always be more than enough. By God's almighty will is everything. The same way that all of this is happening or has happened. But this is just so you can hear it from a secondary perspective, because Mashi, I allowed him to see that whole thing that was going on, and Mashi saw it for himself. So yeah, go ahead, Mashi. It's all on
you. Yeah, exactly. I just need to start that essentially one of the stupid idea that Eduardo came was to essentially use the techniques that Moreno essentially teaches people essentially against him. For example, using his own materials and everything and so on and so forth. Also, another thing was that essentially he tried to use something like mighty oration against Moreno as well, and basically for other things like summoning spirits and so on and so forth. What can be really amusing that essentially he also tried to, for example, like creating his own so-called egregores, laughable, but essentially to or something to curse Moreno as well. And for example, also he tried to also, well, I wouldn't say like pay, maybe like a bribe, because essentially he didn't have enough money to essentially spell some spells or so-called curses on Moreno as well. This is just laughable how essentially he got what he deserved, just overall, just for example, for everyday life, for mental as well as overall health, and so on and so forth. But seeing
Yeah.
something like that and through, let's say, clairvoyant senses, it's so-called good and essentially a good way to see that essentially karma does exist.
Yeah, so Mashi is referring to, for those of you for whom it might be unclear, not that it is, it shouldn't be, but just an FYI, Mashi is simply referring to the whole thing last year where Eduardo tried cursing me laughable. And by that time, Mashi had already taught Mashi mind delving, so Mashi saw it for himself, and his response was just laughable, as in, hey, it's laughable that someone can, that he thinks he even stands like a chance at you, etc., etc. So just like I explained in the last video on him, he tried like cursing me several times, 3, 4 times. I was just having a good laugh, honestly. Literally just a good laugh. Because, like I said, one or two of these curses, I was asleep by that time and I had like a wannabe scary dream. It's like when someone tries to scare you by going like this, ah, and you're just looking at them, you're like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah, and I had a dream like that, essentially, where I can clearly tell that negative energy was at work and trying to thingy me, trying to intimidate me or similar. Because, for example, in one of those dreams, I was in my old parental home, and people that know me know that I don't really have parents. So the people that were supposed to be my parents, how much I dislike and loathe them. And essentially, the dream involved me waking up with a helmet over my head. The helmet was a metaphor for this negative energy, and I simply took off the helmet because I was like, why do I have a helmet on my head, bro? And I went outside my bedroom, and then my parents were in the living room, and they were like, something along the lines of, "We're going to destroy you." And yeah, if Mashi is laughing, then how am I supposed to respond? My response, more or less, was literally, "What the fuck? This is a dream. Let me wake up. Let me wake up." And I woke up. And the second I woke up laughing. I was like, okay. Yeah, let me see. Has the dumb fuck tried doing something? And my astral body's like, yep, he tried it. I'm like, let me see. Planetary hours in his location. Oh, look, see, he's trying, laughable. He's trying to use the strongest planet because he's like, it was like a Tuesday. Mars was at its absolute strongest. He's like, look at this dumb fuck. He's trying to use my own techniques that I taught people a long time ago against me, like to use any kind of workings, for example, of a violent nature on Tuesday when Mars is at its absolute strongest, using a planetary hours calculator. I was like, no, that was funny. Okay, that was funny. That was hilarious. And one or two of those situations happen more, etc., etc. And it's just like, oh, this is fucking laughable. Okay. He's too stupid to, honestly, to understand that I could easily track him, etc. and whatnot. And so yeah, that's what Mashi is referring to. Now we're not going to keep this video long. I already told people in the last video that by the time my enforcer was done with him, not that there was a lot to destroy, it's Eduardo after all. Then he was mentally completely crippled, essentially. He literally, like I told people, he'll never practice again, he'll never do shit again, nothing. Anything he says, does, and or publishes is literally just deception to mislead people. I already explained in that video how he is naturally, but this is, so I'm not going to get into that. He just naturally deceives people the way he's been doing ever since birth, more or less, because it's part of his personality, an integrated part at that. And that was it essentially. And his mental health gradually declined, like devastating levels, and it just went on and on and on. And yeah, for me, I am happy to report, because people get what they deserve, so-called people, that Eduardo a while ago became homeless. All of the chaos, etc., all of it took its toll. All of the karma, all of it, my working combined with karma, made it so that essentially the parents that he lived specifically in his mother's house, or a house that his mother owned, and he didn't pay rent or anything. So long story short, his mother threw his ass out, and now he's homeless. You can clearly see it if you can mind delve. If you look into Eduardo clairvoyantly, you'll easily see that he's like, man, he's homeless. He's alongside the street, and he's been alongside the street for a while. And I had a dream earlier indicating that Eduardo is like 50% gone. He's like lost touch with reality for 50%. He is mentally, I mean, before his mental health was in the toilet. So metaphorically speaking, you can say that the toilet's already been flushed and it's in the cesspool. His mental health, like festering with the rest of his shit and everything. And yeah, Mashik saw that just now. Literally, I told him, "Hey, I had a dream. I'm gonna, you, oh boy, you really want to hear this dream." But before that, I told him, "Look at Eduardo." And Mashik's response was literally, he's just lying on a park bench. I think he peed his own pants, etc. Like typical hobo style. And and I was like, scan him mentally. Yeah, you tell people, you tell them what you saw. Mashik.
Yeah. Essentially, he just lost essentially any contact with reality because essentially the entire world around him is not real. Basically, it looks like cartoons, essentially with lollipops and everything. That basically he's like the master or like a king or I don't know, like a greatest magician or sorcerer in the world. He's so mentally deluded and so on and so forth. Just love
this whole thing left Eduardo with like officially dissociative disorder, PTSD, I think BPD, borderline personality. Like I said, this whole thing made Eduardo contract a good deal of mental disorders. So yeah, that's essentially it. That's the story of destruction. Since it's me, obviously I didn't have to put any effort really into the whole thing. For people that are wondering, why didn't you finish the guy off sooner? Because I didn't have the karmic leeway to do so. I said to myself, listen, I already took away the guy's powers last year. You know, the guy's going to collapse on his own. I know him. He can't even wipe his own ass properly. So yeah, literally the guy's on his own. I'm like, yeah. But then people kept telling me that the guy kept publishing video and like trying to mislead the public, Mashi primarily, trying to mislead the public and trying to bring up a bunch of lies about how he helped me and a bunch of fucking shit that I was like, okay, listen, this shit, because that thing just kept dragging on for like 2 or 3 months near the end of 2022. And I said to myself, okay, this shit's starting to annoy me a little, like really it's starting to micro annoy me. Microaggression, lol. Yeah. And I said to myself, okay. And I was like, hold on, let me check again. And I saw that I had the karmic leeway to destroy him. And I was like, really? Okay. I have the karmic leeway to destroy him now. Okay, no problem. And I simply said to my beloved enforcer, you know what to do. Take this imbecile out. Absolutely destroy him to the ground. End of story. And he promptly did so. And yeah, the rest is history. The rest is history. History/recent history. Before I close off this video, I would like to point out to people, for anyone that is, metaphorically speaking, insane enough to even remotely feel any sympathy or pity for Eduardo, is that no, are you insane? The guy is a parasite. He's the definition of a parasite. This isn't someone that was simply in a bad position or similar, and I essentially kicked the person when they were down. No, I never would do something like that. I strongly disapprove of that. I mean, taking advantage of someone in a vulnerable position? No, I obviously don't take advantage of anyone, even if I say so myself. I would never do so. It goes against my code of honor. But this is someone that deserves destruction. This is someone that deserves to get their ass handed to them. I mean, Mashi saw it for himself. I mean, you tell them, okay, what kind of guy he is.
Essentially, he's not like the person that even remotely is able to essentially not even live on his own, but essentially even to go for, let's say, a minimum wage job. Despite the fact that he didn't have enough money, essentially instead of going for a normal job, he essentially tried to reach out his own parents and essentially after every time just make an excuses to essentially not to work and just basically live and leech someone else's resources. Basically, I think is essentially the worst type of, well, not like partner, essentially the worst type of human that essentially it's literally like a parasite. Then it's going to essentially extract everything from you, and essentially after you stop helping him, essentially he's going to manipulate and gaslighting you that essentially it's your fault. Basically, a typical form of manipulation.
Yeah, exactly. Eduardo lived in, just notable examples, Eduardo lived in a house that his mother owned. His mother owned it through like the real estate lottery in the U.S. Section 408, if I'm not mistaken, Section 4, yeah, 48 housing or 408 housing, something like that. Section 8 housing, sorry, Section 8 housing. Yeah, so his mother got that house in Providence, Rhode Island, through Section 8 housing, and she allowed him to live there rent free. By the time when I had met Eduardo, or better said, when he met me, when he metaphorically came into my life, yeah, he lived in that house, and he lived in that house until the end of this whole thing, this whole so-called saga. He did not have an active source of income, no job, no nothing. I was like, how is that possible? And essentially, the general consensus, I immediately noticed that he is lazy and nonchalant, because he told me, long story short, that, hey, he had worked for a job or something like FedEx or something like that. He worked a job or something. And but he literally quit after only a month or two, because his dad got him the job or something like that. And he quit just literally over the smallest, most insignificant of thing. He essentially got into a disagreement with his supervisor, and he was of the opinion that his supervisor like yelled at him or spoke to him in a way that he didn't like, and that was enough grounds for him to quit. I'm like, are you insane? Over the course of my life, I've been yelled at and screamed at by my so-called superiors back then, by people in an authoritative position. But guess what? You fucking suck it up for the sake of a paycheck. Everybody does that. We all do that. Mashika's also been mistreated at work, but that doesn't mean he simply said, oh, okay, no. Okay, that's enough. I can't handle this. Okay, I quit. No. Of course, you shouldn't stand for any workplace level of abuse, but this is normal. You're going to not get along well with colleagues or with employers or similar. It's all part of the game. It's literally a common occurrence on the labor market. But of course, his sorry ass is too lazy, and he's like, no, it's okay. I'll just leech off of my parents. And this whole leeching mentality and victimization, all of this crap is literally just part of his shit personality. He literally just does all of this, essentially like a natural gaslighter, a natural leech, literally, just awful. So yeah, he literally had no active source of income. He had nothing, literally just nothing. And the same thing that he does to everyone try to pull on me. I was literally, obviously it's me, so I was aware of it since day one, but I played along. I was like, let's see how this thing plays out. Let me see. Okay. He did the same thing with his parents, especially his mother, and that's the only reason that he wasn't kicked out a long time ago. His mother kept pitying him, but again, everything has a breaking point. All the negative things he did, like trying to curse me, etc., karma bit him, coupled with my level of destruction aimed at him. And it just came around full circle, so to speak. And as a result, he is now where he deserves to be, no less, honestly. Again, this is not someone that even remotely should be pitied in any way, shape, or form, because I saw some of the things he said in those pathetic wannabe defensive bullcrap videos. When people told me and they showed me, I was like, hold on, let me see this for myself. Blah 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 blah. I tried to help Moreno. Blah 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 blah, etc. etc. I never asked Moreno for anything. I'm like, see, people show their true colors when they're put under pressure. Now that he sees that there is no going back, there is no way back. Back then, that's what I said. I was like, see, now that there is no way, no going back, literally, as in there is no going back from. He sees that, hey, Moreno isn't going to like forgive me or anything. There is no going back from this whole situation. It's all over, so to speak. Then he immediately, the true him comes out. His true colors come out, which are the natural deceptive gaslighting him, and he tries to gaslight anyone that wants to listen. Okay, the typical things that I already expected based on his personality. I mean, I have his natal chart. I saw it since day one, and I was like, yeah, that's a shit personality. Unsurprisingly, he was born at night. I was like, see, the freaks are almost always born at night. If it's not sundown, around sunset, then it's at midnight. And it just goes on, because Magnolia was born around midnight as well, close to midnight. But Eduardo was born around sundown, so after sundown, like 7 p.m. or something like that, when the sun went down. I'm like, yeah, see, these freaks are always born at night, okay? Almost always. And yeah, you don't pity someone like that. You don't show pity to someone or remorse to someone that deserves no pity or remorse. You just treat them the way they deserve to be treated. If You see a homeless guy alongside the street. The guy's a choosing beggar. You pity the guy. You see how the guy is cold. He's shivering. His ribs are showing. You give the guy like $50, and the guy says, "Is this all? I only accept $200 minimum." You tell me what your response is going to be. Yeah, you can see Mashi laughing. Would you not literally want to spit on the guy and be like, "Get the fuck out of here. You deserve to be alongside the street. You deserve to suffer." Yeah, that's my point is that generally speaking, people get what they deserve. There are exceptions, but sometimes there are people that are legitimately in horrible positions that they don't deserve to be in a matter of speaking. But that's only in a matter of speaking, because in the reality, there is no such thing. The same way that there is no such thing as a bad thing. Everything happens for a reason. In that same context, people get what they deserve only as a figure of speech, of course, not literally related to each other, but in a matter of speaking. People get what they deserve, as in, nah, you see someone that is suffering or struggling, the person did something, generally speaking, that prompted that suffering and or struggling. So they deserve to suffer, at least in an indirect manner. And yeah, that's essentially it. Mashi, is there anything you want to say before I close out this video?
Well, I essentially just wanted to point out that point or a period of time when essentially I think he published on his website that he's going to join like not order. Freemason Lodge was also laughable. That essentially he's going to, let's say, restore his own power or something like that in a mystical way or something. That was also quite amusing to see. Where
Yeah,
essentially
yeah.
he wanted to also join so-called occult, or not occult, I would say more esoteric or quasi-esoteric like organization in order to
Yeah, I think the
get something
Rosicrucians.
back. Or
Mm-hmm,
yeah,
mm-hmm.
exactly. That was
Yeah,
also
I think.
quite laughable.
Yeah, Rosicrucians. And essentially he tried to find like solace there and aid there against me, essentially, if you will. And I was like, yeah, good luck with that. Because they ended up just telling him to piss off more or less when they saw what he was about and what his intentions were. The headmaster or the grandmaster, like I said, me and Mashi, I allowed Mashi to see this. We saw all of it. Like I said, back when, again, since Eduardo was a target, I kept a close eye on him spiritually through my mind delving, obviously, and I allowed Mashi to see stuff like that as well, and he still remember seeing all of it. So he saw the essentially like the same way that when you order a package on Amazon or Walmart and it gets tracked through UPS or USPS, you can see it move in like real time. Mashi has seen this whole development since last year all the way to now, what has come or become of Eduardo. So he's seen firsthand what it's like to track someone essentially progress. It's like seeing a child grow up from like 0 years to 9 years old or 12 years old. You're seeing things unfold in real time, like in a trajectory like fashion. So yeah, that's it. Anything else, Mashi?
No, that's all.
Okay. So we'll see you guys later. Bye everyone. Bye bye.